Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here, back with another reaction video. Today, we finna react. PBS Kids was underrated. Now modern PBS is unwatchable. You think? They got rid of all their OG shows, man. Arthur gone. Sabumafu gone. Yeah, man. PBS ain't been the same since they got rid of Sprout. Once they got rid of Sprout, I think that's when everything went downhill. They gonna get rid of Sprout. That's where all the good shows was. Now all the good shows gone and shit. But then again, the funding for PBS has been dwindling for years. And with Trump trying to get rid of PBS, man, it sucks, but yeah, I ain't gonna lie. The quality ain't there no more, bro. It's just not there no more, man. I don't know what they trying to teach these kids these days, bro. It's like I don't even know. Do y'all teach kids ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, good morals, problem solving, IQ skills? No. They don't teach y'all nothing no more. Now they just make catchy songs to keep you interested in the show. It's like, man, what the fuck? Yeah, they doing the kids wrong, man. But anyways, though, without further ado, let's get right into it.
We should have known something was wrong with PBS Kids the moment that the logo became a corporate, forgettable nothing burger. Or maybe it's when they started making shows that have literally zero cultural impact. Why would anybody hunt the weather? Or perhaps it was when they brought back Ruffman, a cartoon dog who used to host one of the most genuinely mental game shows in children's television history, and then they turned him into a sponsor mouthpiece for artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Ruffman here. Today, I have a poem for you written by me with help from an AI chatbot.
But we'll get
What?
Thing is, I'm British. I didn't grow up with classic PBS Kids. Never watched a single episode of Peg and Cat as a kid. Never saw Cyberchase on telly after school. My childhood was CBeebies, CBBC, Tracy Beaker, Horrid Henry, Shaun the Sheep, Charlie and Lola. PBS Kids was this entirely American thing.
So you had all them Cubo cartoons. Remember Cubo? Yeah, R.I.P. Cubo, man.
They simply didn't exist in my world. But here's what's weird. I still know PBS Kids, or at least a version of it that existed in the 2000s and the 2010s, through sheer cultural osmosis. You see the memes about Arthur's Fist, someone mentions Word Girl, and you end up watching it and realizing it's pretty bloody brilliant. This shared nostalgia for a golden age of educational television that apparently shaped an entire generation. But then I started hearing something else over the past few years. PBS Kids is dead. Why modern PBS Kids is now doomed to fail. So naturally, I got curious because, well, I'm a nosy bastard. I started looking at the current PBS Kids lineup. Shows like Work It Out Wombats, Lila in the Loop, Weather.
Okay. Yeah. All these shows, I don't know. None of these. Now, Daniel Tigers, I know about that one. And then the Wildcrats, I know about that one too. That's been on for a while now. You know what I'm saying? I be messing with the girls. They got them kids and shit, so I kind of know about them. But these right here, these 5 right here, I don't know shit about them. But the last 2, yeah, I'm on point with them. But I don't know nothing about the rest of them.
Hunters. And I couldn't help but wonder, will kids still be talking about these shows in 20 years? Will anyone have YouTube channels dedicated to wombats like Matt Neff does about Arthur and FUDW? Now, some of these newer shows, Carl the Collector for one, are genuinely good, but that might just be the exception that proves the rule. But before we get onto these newfangled shows, you've got to look at what happened to Ruffman, because it ain't pretty. Part 1, the slow death of Ruffman. Fetch with Ruffman was classic PBS Kids at its best. It ran from 2006 to 2010, a live-action game show hosted by an animated dog, which is a genuinely unhinged concept, but it worked. And it worked because the character had a real personality. Imagine if Shaun the Sheep could talk and hosted Funhouse. That's roughly the energy. Ruff was neurotic and sarcastic, the kind of character who'd panic over point tallies and get comically outwitted by the kids. Jim Conroy voiced him and every other animated character on the show. There was a cat called Blossom who operated the camera and never spoke. Kids did real challenges. The show even won an Emmy. Then it got cancelled because, well, you guessed it, PBS ran out of money, which is a recurring theme with this lot. Ruff resurfaced surfaced briefly in 2014 in a series of web shorts called Humble Media Genius. Harmless stuff about internet safety and not texting while driving. Then, in March 2024, a second season dropped. Fans were excited for about 30 seconds. What they got was a series of shorts, funded in part by Microsoft, in which Ruff enthusiastically teaches children how to use AI chatbots and voice assistants.
Hallie is an artificial intelligence assistant, which means it's programmed to help with things like this. Hallie is amazing!
Blossom is gone. No explanation, just gone. Replaced by a talking blue cat called Lupine, who's voiced by someone else entirely. And this breaks the whole dynamic of the original, where Conroy did every voice. The animation is flatter and cheaper. The writing has been completely defanged. The neurotic, bumbling, funny character has been smoothed out into this chirpy, tech-positive mascot who explains algorithms with the enthusiasm of a corporate training video.
I don't think it shows the real Ruff, or tells me much about media.
Oh, now it's hopeless.
You know, you could get some help from artificial intelligence.
Hell no.
One fan on Reddit put it, frick it. I just saw the new episodes and I had to throw myself off the screen. When people are swearing about a PBS Kids show, something has gone properly wrong. Ruffman is basically the whole PBS Kids problem shrunk down to one character. He had a soul, they took it out, and they replaced it with a Microsoft sponsorship and some talking points about AI safety. He's still technically the same dog, but he's not, really. Bro needs investigating. So, after seeing what they did to Ruff, I assumed the whole network had just gone to hell. I was expecting the worst. Rock bottom ratings, scathing reviews. Except that's not what I found at all. Part 2. The Paradox. A modern show, Weather Hunters, the Al Roker climate show that premiered in September 2025, has an 8.8 out of 10 on IMDb. That's higher than a classic PBS show like Arthur, which scored a 7.4. Higher than Curious George at 7.2. Absolutely trounces Clifford at 6.5. Even beats Cyberchase at 6.9. Carl the Collector, another modern PBS Kids first show centered entirely on an autistic lead character, 8.4 out of 10. More modern PBS shows score super high too. Lila in the Loop, 8.5. Working Out Wombats, 8.3. So, according to the actual data, PBS Kids is making better television than the golden age that everyone's nostalgic for. The numbers don't lie, right? But pull back a bit and you notice something. Weather Hunters has 77 reviews. Carl the Collector has 167. Compare that to Arthur with over 17,500, or Clifford with more than 6,000. Arthur's ratings might be lower, but the numbers actually mean something. A high rating from 77 people doesn't actually show you if a show is good. It actually tells you that almost nobody is watching. Arthur has had 25 years for people to grow up and go rated on IMDb. Weather Hunters has had about 5 months. But it's not like Weather Hunters is trending upwards and just needs time. It's barely registering. Conversely, shows like Odd Squad were generating fan communities and online buzz while they were still airing. Some shows just grab people while they're on, and the current lineup doesn't seem to be doing that. Shows like Lila in the Loop exist in this weird space where they're technically good, measurably good even, but they've completely failed to penetrate culture in any meaningful way. And that disconnect is fascinating because it suggests something's fundamentally broken here. Broken beyond way more than just this new thing's bad. Because this new thing, it isn't bad by traditional metrics. So what's actually going on? Part 3. The horror stories. There's an entire wiki page dedicated to PBS Kids, 2022 to present, that reads like an obituary. I mean, literally, the tone is that feudal. Here's what users are writing. Most of their new shows nowadays focus on protecting the environment, learning about cultures, or learning to be a good person, which, while not necessarily bad, can get bland, repetitive, and tedious. Fair enough, you might think. Educational shows being educational and all that. But then it gets harsher. They list a ton of classic shows. Ready, Jet, Go, Ruffman, Maya and Miguel, Dragon Tales, saying that they've either been screwed over or unnecessarily cancelled and replaced with these boring, cringeworthy and lifeless cartoons that, despite some being good, feel absolutely nothing like actual PBS Kids shows. And
they don't care about the kids no more. That's what it is. They said, fuck them kids. Just put something out there so we can get this money. They ain't even caring about the kids no more, man. They ain't what about the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, the colors, problem solving? They teach them about the environment and how to protect it. We got to keep the earth great, guys. We don't want global warming and all that. Man, fuck all that shit. I need the knowledge. I need the knowledge, the basic of knowledge, my nigga.
Do the knowledge, nigga. Okay.
I'm just saying, bruh. I can't co-sign this. This is terrible. This is bad for the children. The children need more, man. Coco Melon ain't teaching these kids ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, man. They ain't teaching them that A is for apple, B is for banana, C is for car, D is for dinosaur, E is for elephant, F is for flag, G is for I don't know. Damn. This nigga don't know nothing that start with a G. This nigga stupid. Your mama. But anyways, yeah, like I said, man, they don't care about the kids no more, man.
When it comes to the 2022 rebrand, compared to the previous brandings, the 2022 rebrand feels very lazy, uninteresting, and just plain simple at best. Then I found this blogger who watched the entire 2024 PBS Kids lineup, which makes her an absolute masochist, but her observations are brutal on Lila in the Loop. When this came on, my immediate reaction was confusion. I don't get what this show is about. There's no hook on Work It Out Wombats. She managed exactly one line. They roll on their enormous heads, which is distressing. That was it. That was the whole review. The fact that they couldn't be bothered to say more tells you everything. Sidekick, Stu, a little blue character who's meant to teach kids about programming logic. Stu has no common sense. He is simply a programmable entity. That's your lead character's sidekick? At least a sidekick like TW from Arthur stays in the memory. Part 4, the real problem. As I've been updating my knowledge on classic PBS for this video, I thought it was only fair if I sat through several episodes of these new shows to see if I was missing something. I know it might sound harsh, but I think it's true. Kids today, they're not going to be able to remember these shows. It's obviously more complicated than PBS Kids went bad. The current lineup skews much younger than the old days, almost exclusively preschool. The shows are designed with sensory-friendly palettes, slower pacing, very clear educational objectives, and honestly, there is genuine innovation happening. Carl the Collector employs autistic actors at every level of production, writers, animators, advisors. It spent 9 years in development, which, in television terms, is roughly the same as building a cathedral. The autism representation is so authentic, the one PBS advisor who was recently diagnosed said, "I wish this series existed when I was a kid." And other shows fulfill an important role too. Weather Hunters teaches climate science effectively. Alma's Way centers a Puerto Rican family in the Bronx. That stuff matters, and I don't want to dismiss it. But having said that, I don't think any of this is gonna stick. And that's a problem, even if the shows themselves are well made. PBS Kids became cautious in ways that hurt what they were actually putting out. They started designing shows by committee, prioritizing educational objectives over taking creative swings. And look, I get why. All that stuff, it does genuinely matter. But somewhere in that process of making sure that everything ticks the right boxes, they forgot that what makes a show stick in a kid's brain is whether or not that show has soul. Whether it's that kind of weird and specific thing you can't forget, even if you wanted to. Nobody sits around at age 25 or 30 going, "Remember that show that met all its curriculum targets?" That's just not how memory works. They're not going to remember them the way that millennials remember Arthur, or the way Gen Z remember Wildcrats and Odd Squads. And I think there's two main reasons for this. The first reason is that iPad culture has completely changed how kids consume media. They don't sit down at 4 p.m. to catch their show anymore. When I was a kid, you'd race home from school to catch Horrid Henry before tea. That was an event. That mattered to you. Let me know in the comment section, what show did you love to watch when you came home from school? Get typing in that comment section below.
Whatever was on WB Kids. I wasn't watching no fucking PBS. I was watching WB Kids, yeah. And then they stopped doing afternoon cartoons. So then you had no choice. You had to go over to Cartoon Network. Had to sit in the living room and watch television. I usually didn't have to sit in the living room and watch television because that was where the cable was. I mean, I had cable, but eventually the illegal cable box, you know, everything went digital. Shit wasn't analog no more. You know what I'm saying? If you had the illegal cable box, if you know, you know. That shit was analog. It had got to a point where it couldn't be analog no more. Now you had to be fucking, everything was digital at that point. So it was like, yeah. And my mom was like, I ain't getting you no cable. You got cable money, but you get cable in your room because I'm paying for it. That ain't fair, man. I'll take your TV away. Okay. All right. Dang, you gotta be like that. Had to go in the living room and watch cable. And you got a sister that's gonna be in there at times, man. Like, man, get off, man. Get out, man. I'm trying to watch a show, man. It'd be like that, though. But anyways.
Anyway, kids nowadays, they scroll through Netflix and YouTube Kids and Disney Plus, this endless algorithm feed designed to keep them watching until their eyes glaze over and their parents start questioning their life choices. PBS Kids was built on the idea of scheduled, shared programming, but that model is basically dead now. And you can't really blame PBS for losing a fight against Coco Melon and Brainrot AI slop on YouTube Shorts when those platforms run on algorithms that would make a gambling company blush. The second reason, and honestly, the more important one in my view, is that these shows play it way too safe. Safe, by the way, in ways that make them unmemorable, even to the kids who are actually watching them. Let me show you what I mean by looking at the visual homogeneity of the entire lineup. They all look fine and professional and inoffensive and completely unobjectionable, which is to say it looks quite boring if we're being totally honest. Now, compare that to the wild variety of classic PBS Kids shows in the 2000s and 2010s, where every show looked completely different from every other show in ways that were immediately recognizable. Arthur had that hand-drawn book illustration style that looked like Mark Brown's actual illustrations come to life. Between the Lines was this absolutely mental puppet animation live-action hybrid that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Word Girl had that Flash-style superhero look. Every show was visually unmistakable. You can pause a frame for half a second and know exactly what you're watching without any doubt. It's like how you never confuse Charlie and Lola with Horrid Henry. They looked completely different because they were completely different shows made by completely different people with completely different ideas. The current PBS Kids shows just blur together in your memory because they're all variations on the same house style, like they came from the same factory with slightly different paint jobs. Now, I should say, PBS Kids proved they can still do it when they actually bother. Carl the Collector came out in November 2024 after nearly a decade in development and is properly good. Their first show with an autistic lead, Emmy nomination, and a fanbase that goes way beyond toddlers. Autistic adults are watching it and saying, this is the first show where I've ever felt seen. It's got 3 autistic characters who are all autistic in completely different ways. Carl's verbal and stims with his fingers. Lotta has sound hypersensitivity, and Paolo is non-speaking and uses a communication device, which is a PBS Kids first. An autistic professor sat in on every episode from start to finish, changing things like 4 days to 4 days, 11 hours and 56 minutes because that's how Carl would actually say it. His parents are divorced and nobody makes a fuss about it. His friends argue with him and get it wrong and figure it out. It's modeled on Peanuts. Carl and his mate Sheldon are basically Charlie Brown and Linus, and the kid actors mostly do unedited takes, so they sound like actual children rather than tiny adults reading a script. Modern PBS Kids deserve credit for having the guts to build an entire show around neurodiversity without making it feel like homework. But most shows on this lineup don't do this. They're neither this brave nor this bold. And the writing suffers from the same problem of playing it safe. As Joy Massat said about Lila in the Loop, there's no hook. The shows are educational and well-intentioned, but they lack personality and the kind of zany energy that make kids actually care about the characters beyond just passively watching them. Nature Cat was a house cat who was terrified of water but desperately wanted to explore nature anyway. That's funny and absurd and memorable because it's such a ridiculous premise. Peg and Cat had this whole thing where they solve math problems through song, which sounds like it shouldn't work at all, but somehow did because they committed to the bit completely. But can you name a single character from Work It Out Wombats and describe their personality, or what makes them interesting as characters, rather than just being educational vehicles? I certainly can't. It's just wombats who work things out, which is exactly what the title promised, but also somehow less than you'd hope for because they're just competent problem solvers, and that's it. There's nothing memorable about them. Beige and pleasant content that washes over you and then evaporates like it was never there. Part 5, The Great Purge. But the real gut punch came in October 2022, when they just started axing shows wholesale, as this tweet reads. 5 shows are being removed from PBS Kids' 24/7 schedule beginning Monday. Classic Clifford, Word Girl, Word Mouth, Martha Speaks, and Splash and Bubbles will no longer have a recurring time slot on the national schedule. 5 shows gone. Just like that, removed from the schedule entirely. I've watched episodes of each of these shows while researching this script, so I know this is true. You could watch 5 seconds of any of them and know exactly what you were watching. As for the new shows, as the Qualitypedia users put it, these cartoons feel absolutely nothing like actual PBS Kids shows. Part 6, The Death Blow. And then, just as PBS Kids was navigating this creative identity crisis, trying to figure out what it wanted to be in the streaming age, the floor completely collapsed from underneath them. In May 2025, the Trump administration terminated the Ready to Learn grant, a program that had been running continuously since 1995 and provided seed money for PBS Kids' educational content development. The Department of Education called the grant funding woke propaganda, despite the fact that the grant had been awarded during Trump's first term under Secretary Betsy DeVos, which is quite ironic when you think about it. Then, in July 2025, Congress passed a rescissions package, eliminating all $1.1 billion in CPB federal funding. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting announced in January 2026 that it would cease operations entirely. Just shutting down. Done. The impact on PBS Kids has been absolutely catastrophic. 30% staff reduction across PBS Kids happened almost immediately. Over 80 educational games were removed from the PBS Kids website because there was nobody left to maintain them, which is particularly grim when you consider how much work went into developing those. And the new show pipeline was cut in half because there's simply no money to developing programming at the scale they used to. PBS Kids SVP Sarah DeWitt told Education Week, "Right now, I'm looking at 2027 and we don't currently have a show that we can launch." Jesse McMahon, content producer for Carl the Collector, wrote in the Bangor Daily News, "Our children will pay the biggest price." And meanwhile, CBeebies, which is basically the British version of PBS Kids, publicly funded, no ads, same age group, is still making mad stuff. Hey Dougie won 4 BAFTAs and produced a techno song about a stick that got played on Newsnight. They do Shakespeare at the actual Globe Theatre for toddlers. Sarah and Duck is about a girl and her duck in a world of sentient shallows, and it won an international Emmy. And then the channel switches itself off at 7 o'clock because it's bedtime. PBS Kids runs the channel 24/7 and still can't figure out what it's exactly for. Guess that's just another W for us Brits. Sorry, Americans. And when the funding crisis finally kills what's left of the development pipeline, when the last new show airs and the schedule becomes nothing but Daniel Tiger reruns because there's no money to make anything new, we'll look back and realize something quite sad. I can still remember every episode of Shaun the Sheep I watched as a kid. I can still quote Horrid Henry, and I can't help but doubt that anyone's going to be saying that about Working Out Wombats in 2045. The final Ready to Learn funded show at Phoebe and Jay premiered on February the 2nd, 2026. After that, the pipeline goes dark. Nothing coming. Empty schedule streaming into the future. Cartoon Movement made a fantastic video called The Problem with Modern PBS Kids Nobody Talks About. So do go check that video out. And if there's anything you want to see me do a video on next, let me know in that comment section below. Thank you so much for watching my video. Smash that like button if you made it to the end. Snipe Snap is taking requests.
Well, there you have it. Sad, slow death for PBS, man. They don't have the funding no more. Can't take care of their shows. Had to resort for safe. The fact that they call it cartoons propaganda is crazy. So what is it? It's crazy, bro. The world that we living in right now is fucked up, man. I'm telling you though, we're gonna look back at the 2020s and be like, man, this is probably where everything went to shit. The 2020s is where everything went to shit. Everything that was normal is no longer existing. Normalcy is no longer a thing. Impending doom, chaos, trying to figure out the next move. Yeah. We finna go through it, bro. I don't know what the future holds, but it ain't looking good. But anyways, though, that's just gonna about do it for this one. I'll see you on the next video. Till then, this is